from the vault, high atop the pastoral center of the Diocese of Camden, you're listening to Talking Catholic.
Hello and welcome to Talking Catholic, the official podcast of the Diocese of Camden. My name is Mary McCusker and I am one of the Talking Catholic co-hosts, and I'm also a proud representative of Catholic Charities Diocese of Camden. And we have a very special episode today, and I think I've said that about every episode I've co-hosted, but this one actually is really special because this is the first time that all of the Talking Catholic co-hosts are together in one room. So I don't know how we go about introducing all the co-hosts if we're all equal, but I guess we should just go around the table.
Start with the right. Let's go with Marianela first.
So my name is Marianela Nunez, and I am the field consultant for the Latino Enrollment Initiative, co-host of Talking Catholic, and also Compartiendo tu Donde Spanish, sort of like podcast. Mike doesn't want me to say it's a podcast, but it's a show. So like
it's a YouTube show. It's a YouTube show.
The YouTube show. Yeah, that's me. Thank you so much, Mary. I think I am so excited about sort of like, getting to talk to all of you in one room in the vault.
Yeah. Well, hey, I'm Kari, Janisse, coordinator of Youth and Young Adult Ministries at Our Lady of Peace Parish in Williamstown. I also am another Talking Catholic podcast host. Wow, us podcast hosts actually get tongue-tied sometimes. Sorry about that, listeners. But my short title at the parish is youth minister, so that's usually what the kids call me and refer to me as. In the diocese, that's my formal title. So it's good to be here amongst other adults because I'm used to always working with youth and young adults. So we're here in the vault, and we're all chatting away with our community of the podcast hosts. So Mike's here next. He's around the table tonight.
Yeah, that's right. I'm the last of the co-hosts at the table, and I'm Mike Walsh. I'm the Director of Communications for the Diocese of Camden. And this is our 155th episode, I think, by the time this airs. And the first time we've had an opportunity to have Mary on the podcast since we joined the Domestic Church media family. So I'm an avid podcast listener, and one of my favorite parts of podcasts is generally when it gets to the end of the year and you get around the holidays, it's difficult to get guests to come on the show. So oftentimes a lot of podcasts will do what's commonly referred to as a hostful. I'm stealing that from the Nerdist podcast. But it's when the hosts just get around the table and have a conversation with each other. Has the benefit this year of giving me an opportunity to finally formally introduce my co-hosts to our listeners. For the first 140 some odd episodes of the show, as our long-term listeners know, certainly, Pete Sanchez was my co-host. And several months ago, made the decision that he's going to be focusing more on his writing for the Catholic Star Herald, as well as his Talking Saints podcast that he does with Lori Power. It's a monthly podcast, and if you haven't had a chance to listen to it, it sounds nothing like this one. It's very spiritual. They talk about the lives of the saints and how we as Catholics can grow and be nurtured by those lives and their stories, and how the benefits we have to praying to them to intercede on God's behalf, on our behalf, rather. So it's a great podcast, and I really hope everyone gets a chance to listen to it. Lori herself is fantastic. It won a Catholic Media Award this past summer, or June, as a matter of fact, as the second place for Best Diocesan Podcast. Even though they've done about 20 episodes and we've done 153, they got the award. We didn't. I'm not saying I'm bitter. Okay, I'm a little bitter, but that's all right.
Oh, poor you. Now you're surrounded by three beautiful, lovely ladies on the podcast. But Pete does do an amazing job. Him and Lori are incredible.
They are great. And Lori Power.
We love Pete.
Yeah, yes. And Pete's great, and Lori really deserves a lot of credit. She's been on the show a couple of times. Awesome. She has such a great spirit. I do recommend, if you are interested in listening to Talking Saints, go to our Talking Catholic feed on any of our any place you can get podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, any place. Just type in Talking Saints and it'll pull up, or you can go directly to our URL for the podcast, which is soundcloud.com/Talking Catholic, and we have a special playlist at the very top that's just Talking Saints episodes. So you can listen to all 20 of the episodes.
Check
Those
it
are
out.
pretty intense
Yeah, check it out.
directions there, Mike.
Hey, man,
Jeez,
you know,
we'll have
the
to
internet-
put a link in when we post this.
Geez, I've actually been doing that lately. I've been putting the link into things.
There we go.
As well as all of our social media. Don't forget to check us out on social media at Talking Catholic on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And because I always forget to do this every single time we do a podcast episode, make sure you like us and write a review on Apple Podcasts. That is the Apple Podcast is the #1 podcast provider, and it raises our visibility when you rate us and give us reviews, so that when other people are looking for good Catholic content, we will show up on their searches.
Help us out.
That's
Yes.
right.
Oh, I haven't
Please,
even
guys.
done that yet. I got to get on that
Yeah, yes, you do.
Yes.
as the official
Actually,
co-host now.
What people don't realize is that Mary has the honor of having been the first guest we ever had on an unheard episode.
Really?
That's right.
That's right. I got a phone call, and I was fairly new at this point, and I got a call from Mike that said, we're using you as a guinea pig, was the first thing he said.
Always great to be
I
called a
said,
guinea
okay.
pig.
For
You were
what?
probably a really good guinea pig.
She was phenomenal.
It
It was outstanding. She has always hated it.
I hope you deleted it because
Nope.
I've extinguished it from my memory.
Nope.
But Mike, I said, well, what am I going to be talking about? And he said, just who you are as a person and how you got there. I said, oh, okay. So
That's a
really
broad
easy to
topic.
put into right. That's easy to put into
She's
words.
got
I almost had a panic attack.
She has a great backstory, a wonderful backstory, and I will tell you that she was the first interviewee. We got to cry on Mike. We were very excited about that.
The first
was
day?
True.
Our first episode. We had
Because
a
they were
Start
diving
off
into like
strong.
some serious life experiences, and I got choked up at one point, and I
Well,
said,
that's because Mary's had some serious life experiences, and they
We
were
all
beautiful,
have.
and we all have. But it's sometimes it's good to hear people who have sort of had the struggles and overcome them. And if you listen to our past episodes, you'll have heard about a couple of them.
You can find that episode, people. So if you
No, you
now-
can't.
no, it is gone forever.
No.
Did you delete it?
No, I
What
didn't.
happened?
It's well, part of the deal with getting her to be our first guest was that I had to promise that I wouldn't publish it. So we
All right, good. It's on the record.
we needed-
Everybody heard
It's
that.
archived somewhere.
Oh my God,
Oh, no, I
Mike!
have it. I
I
saw
want
it.
it, Mike.
Somewhere.
Oh, you trust me.
I want it.
I'll share it around. It's a great episode, but the reason we recorded it was solely to test the equipment. So it was just going to be
Guinea
like
pig,
it was
like
going
I
to be
said.
like a 5-minute episode, and then we ended up talking for 45 minutes, and it was beautiful. She's got such a great story,
That's
which it'll
awesome.
come out over time.
It'll be
but-
We
our
should-
158th podcast.
Yeah, we
I
should have
think.
her back. We'll all interview you.
I don't like this one bit.
I got
About to
news.
walk out of the vault.
So Mary, if we didn't do this Hostful episode, that was what I was going to put up was the first episode of Talking Catholic. But I think I'll save that for like the last episode of Talking Catholic.
And I think I'll destroy your equipment before you do.
Mary, it is in the cloud. But anyway, it's a beautiful episode. I'll share it with you.
Enough about me,
Thank
Mike.
you, Mike.
So, but one of the questions that some of our listeners might have is why did I pick these three? So 2 of them were kind of an easy pick. They are diocesan employees, which is my biggest problem is being able to grab somebody at the last minute to record a podcast episode. Both Marianela and Mary have been on the podcast several times, very polished. And for all of Mary's misgivings about herself and concerns about her own abilities, she's a great on-air talent and great at her job and very natural when it comes to interviewing people. If you haven't had the opportunity yet, I highly encourage you to read her articles in the Catholic Star Herald.
She's a great writer.
She's a fantastic
Aw,
writer.
thanks, you guys.
She really, her features on the clients and the people working at Catholic Charities are really very moving. She shows you a side of their lives that maybe you wouldn't necessarily see or hear about in other places, but it's absolutely beautiful. She's a truly accomplished writer, someone who has, if I'm not mistaken, has won a couple of awards herself, and from the Catholic Media Association, deservedly so. So that's how she got pulled into it. Plus, she's also
I'm
my
going to start crying again for the second time.
well. Here, I'll flip it
We're
around.
full circle.
She's also
Thank
my
you,
only
Mike.
direct employee, so she didn't really have a choice.
That's
I
right,
kind
yeah.
of made her do it. Marianela had, when I first came here, she was actually one of the people who interviewed me from the job, and she's one of those sparkling diamonds you just kind of walk across every now and again.
the truth.
God.
that you realize, wow, there's something supernatural in this person, and she takes to new media better than anyone I've ever met. Like, whereas with Mary, it's like twisting her arm to do something, A, on camera, B, on just on audio. Whereas Marianela, I have to say, is, hey, Mary, could I? Yep, I'll be there. What do you need? I'm there. Let me go put some makeup on, and I'll be perfectly fine. It took me a long...
You have a makeup room now?
That's right.
Oh, that's what we need.
That
we
would
could
be
do Mike's
awesome.
makeup.
I think I'm going to
Mike
make
could
the
use it.
vault some kind of like way, you know, make it
at least a
makeup,
mirror or something.
makeup available.
But it's true. You have a background in communications. You're a natural communicator. I've seen everything that you've done for the schools and Hispanic ministry, and it's just beautiful. And she did something. Actually, she was interviewed earlier in the summer because we were doing a soccer. They were doing a soccer tournament.
Oh, that was fun.
Diocesan soccer
Oh, I
tournament.
heard about this one. Yep.
Okay, so the soccer tournament itself was lovely, and the preparations went into it were really impressive. And the podcast we did promoting it was actually one of the most fun ones we ever did. Actually, it was the only podcast we ever recorded for video as well.
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
it was the first one. Yeah,
The first and only at this
Yeah.
point.
Hey, we need to get some more of that. I mean, we have these beautiful women now. We
That's
can maybe,
true.
Yeah,
That's
right.
we
true.
can kind of block you out, Mike. But
Well, that's
put
what
the
I do.
cameras on us.
That's what we do on the Spanish language YouTube show.
Just
Is I'm on the
crop 'em on
bottom.
out.
That's
Yeah.
right. Hey, I can set that up. No one will complain. But what actually really impressed me about Marianela was not the podcast, and wasn't the prep, wasn't the event itself. She and Chani Melgar, were actually hosting the event on site. I don't know whose idea this was. I got to assume it was Marianela's. So they were playing two different soccer matches on two different fields, but they were kind of butted up against each other. So Marianela and Claudia would stand in between the two fields, and they would basically call each game all day long. And they just never...
I was there. I witnessed.
They
I witnessed
never-
that. Yeah, I was
I
there.
heard about it.
They
It was
never
great.
stopped talking.
One thing you guys should know is that I knew nothing about soccer. Claudia was not better.
Truth be told,
And we learned. We had a lot of fun doing that.
They were cheering on the teams. Every time they actually saw a goal, they would shout out goal. They had so much fun. And by
I got a
about...
suntan.
Yeah, that's true.
It was a hot day. It was.
Halfway through the tournament, if the players didn't hear their goal called, they were turning around and requesting comments from the two of them. It was
They
great. It was
stole the show, and they don't even know the sport.
It was great. They were phenomenal.
Oh, Andres had fun listening to us because he knows a lot about soccer. And we were like, yeah.
Hey, you just put a girl on the microphone, make it sound good.
Oh, it was
Fake it till
great.
you make it. It's all good.
That's the key, which is actually probably should be the
say yes,
motto
Mike.
of the podcast. Just fake it till you make it. That's kind of what we've been doing.
think it's
You know,
like the
Mike,
motto.
you said something earlier. We were talking earlier
About you being a diamond?
No,
A sparkly diamond?
I really like that
Okay,
part.
there
Thank
you
you,
go.
Mike.
No problem.
But you mentioned Father Barron in our previous conversation we had today.
Oh, off mic. Yeah,
And I think that's sort of like what I like to go with. Like I just, throw myself into things, and the Holy Spirit will guide. And I think that's the magic right there.
That's exactly right. And
sure.
and actually, I'll reference that on mic in a moment. And then Kari. So Kari and I have been sort of like on the periphery of each other for quite a while, and I kind of knew of her, and I knew people that knew her. And then I came to work for the diocese, and I would see her a little bit more often. And then we had her on the...
You're missing a big part here. We played against each other in church league softball.
I wasn't going to bring that up because my team was
And my
terrible
team really killed your team. Like,
every single time.
and I was not only the coach, but the second
was-
baseman.
that was
So
a
let
really-
us not forget that.
Did
That was a
Marianela
really
narrate
important
it?
part of the sort of like introduction, Mike. How are you going to miss
know.
that?
Oh yeah, the softball champion
we
with
go.
a ringer-filled team. Yeah, that's right. We lost to them a lot. I'm still bitter about it. But we did learn from that lesson of getting shellacked by her team. We got ringers as well, and that made it better in later years. And then the one year we actually did well was the year I think were out on maternity leave.
Probably was.
And
Yeah,
I was
I don't
like,
remember it.
and that was my one. That was my one happy year at softball in the diocesan softball league.
And now you're retired. Your glove is hung up.
I'm old and broken, so no more. Actually, I would come back out though if they put together another team. I would definitely catch her play first base.
Let's go.
There
I'm
you
ready.
go.
Oh
I'm
my
not playing
goodness,
for
this is like a match right here.
Our Lady of Peace, though.
Right
I
now.
refuse. So Kari, I got to know like in all these different ways, and then we had her on the podcast, Pete and I, and met her spirituality and her faith and her dedication and what she's done with the youth groups in Williamstown. She's a complete package. She's great. She sounds great. She really works hard. She's dedicated, and she's always looking for new ideas. And I love being around people like that. So when I came up with the idea of the 3 hosts, I was like, it's weird, but that's the nice thing about podcasts, which are different than radio shows. Podcasts are like the wild, wild west. You just kind of do whatever you need to do to get the job done. So when I came up, it was not an easy decision. It took me a long time to sort of decide on how to handle this change. Particularly after having just one co-host for such a long time. But I realized that I really needed to get new voices, and I really wanted female voices as well. We had been a male-heavy show for a long time, which is fine, but I know, working with all of you and working with women in general, that there's different perspectives. So since one is particularly adept at social justice and Catholic charities, and Mary, and one is particularly adept at schools and Hispanic ministry, and Marianela, and one is a youth group goddess, I don't know, maybe the best way to put it.
Wait, you're like breaking a commandment even saying that. Like,
I know.
Putting me up
That's
there.
a good point. That's a
Catholic podcast.
That's right. I know. That tends to happen with me.
It's okay.
And then, but someone who really understands their spirituality and their formation is so deep. I was like, those are 3 voices that should be heard more. So I said, I realized in the first 15 minutes of this podcast, I've talked a lot. But I really wanted everyone else's perspective coming through, and I got to tell you, over the last 10 episodes that we've been doing like this, I've been blown away by the quality of our podcast since having you guys on, and I'm just thrilled that you guys all decided to do it.
Do we have to shower you with compliments?
Well, yes, I was going to say.
No, I know I'm great.
I think we need to
already.
say something about Mike. Who's Mike? Like for us, in the diocese.
I am a useful tool. That is the only
useful tool.
You haven't even said your official title.
Didn't I start it?
Yeah, did you? Yes, I did.
You just don't listen to me. I did forget one of them.
I tune in and out.
I forgot. I do have 2 titles, though. I have the Director of Communications and the Associate Publisher of the Catholic Star Herald. I always forget that last one.
And you're
a big
also
one, too.
shout
You
out.
shouldn't forget that.
You're the producer of Compartiendo Tu Don.
And the producer of Compartiendo
and
Tu Don.
Talking Catholic.
And this will be a podcast later, but the Kari will be back for. But we're going to have a special YouTube shows coming soon that Kari will be a part of, but we'll save that for a future
I was debating on putting that in my title, which is why I started to get tongue-tied. And I was like, do I say this? Do I not? Okay, moving on.
Oh, we
We'll
haven't
leave
even,
people in suspense.
we haven't even
Yes, it's
recorded the first
coming
one
up.
yet, but coming in January will be
Spoiler
a
alert.
brand new YouTube channel with 5 shows that we're going to be coming out.
I think we should definitely say a word or two
I
about
agree.
Mike.
He's very tall.
As he mentioned, I was part of the team that interviewed him. Not for this position, actually. We were interviewing him for another position at the school's office, and we were like so impressed that we sent him off. Like, there's another position open that's bigger. I think you should apply there. And this is where
I didn't know
he is.
that. Wow.
Yeah.
That's-
So he impressed us with his sort of like his experience, the way he interviewed. He was just so confident, and I was like,
He's a
"Look,
PR professional.
When I
Of course he
grow
is.
up, oh my goodness, this guy."
I tell everybody, Marianela is going to be the one that replaces me. Give her about 10 more years
see it.
and a little more background in crisis communication, and she'll be my replacement.
See you
It's
later.
incredible.
Yeah.
Like, so he's sort of like I call him a workaholic recently. Like,
Oh,
he
yes,
doesn't
he is.
stop, and
And I'm so lazy
he's
naturally.
very
That's the worst
available.
part.
Like, we just went to a podcast at one of the schools today, and it's just like a little podcast. Kids were doing it, and we had a great time. They were interviewing us, and he really tries to be available. I think he's making the diocese his life.
The diocese has been better since you've came.
Oh, that's
For
very kind of you to say that.
Communications wise, I think we really have improved. Like, there's definitely a social media presence, which we didn't have before. And in terms of what we put out there, people get to know Bishop a little bit more personally, because now they have all these social media outlets that he's using to promote our faith, to promote the things that are happening in our diocese, and so that people feel a little bit connected to the diocese, because the diocese is not the first word that comes to mind when Catholics are talking about their faith. And
Some
so
people don't even know, what is
they
the
don't know what
diocese
that
for?
is.
That's
So
true.
Yeah.
That's
So
very true.
you
we're getting out there.
You
Thank you,
brought
Mike.
it to the people and on their level. And it's
Well,
been great.
I'll tell you, it's really an extension of Bishop Sullivan in a lot of ways. Bishop Sullivan is very much a man of the people. And, he's not a big, you don't see him on TV a lot. You don't see him. That's not his thing. He's not being interviewed in the newspaper all the time. He likes to go out to the parishes and talk to the people directly, and I think that's made a big difference. Which weirdly, even though we've had this podcast and we have all these tools that we use, we've never had Bishop on the podcast. We've never interviewed him. We don't do a lot of videos with him, unless they're special videos to the people of the diocese, because the podcast wasn't really intended for that. Now, granted, he's welcome if he wants to come on. I'll put him on.
Bishop, you are invited.
And he does have
Here's your official invite.
That's right. And he will come on. I've been trying to debate like when the perfect time to have him on will be, but it will probably be sometime in the next calendar year. But it was this whole thing was about being with the people and exposing the listeners to people they might not know, who could be a town away from them or down the shore or in the bowels of Salem County or something like that.
Yeah.
Or we just had Christina Chillum on from who works in Salem County, and most people don't even realize that Salem County is down there, but it's this beautiful place that
and it's part of us.
And it's part of us. And so bringing these people forward was always the plan altogether. And now that I have the three of you, you're bringing even more people to other people's
Casting
attention.
the nets out wide and just
That's
be able
what
to
this
collect
job
them
is.
all and give
You're
it
right.
back
There
out.
are so many just unsung heroes and people, the movers and shakers in the diocese, and just having a chance to not only interview them, but hear what they're up to and the part that they play in the diocese. It really is great.
So I'm going to turn the tables. I promise. Usually when we have these Hostfuls, there's no interviewing or anything. It's just us chit-chatting. But I'm going to put you on the spot. Since not everybody is...
This is not an equal conversation.
Don't
You
worry.
said we would all be talking, and now we're about to be interviewed.
Well, okay, you're going to be talking. Don't worry, Mary. I'm going to let you go last so you get to think about your answer.
Good.
Kari.
I get to go first.
So, Kari, why don't you explain how you got here? Like, what makes a girl from North Jersey who's a Giants fan end up in Eagles territory?
I'm out of here.
I'm going to set the record straight right now. Mike, I think I told you this before. I am a Yankee fan, but I'm an Eagles fan.
Oh, that's
I'm
right.
a hybrid.
Yankee
She's
fan.
all right.
That's
Yes,
Hybrid, okay.
and this is for my husband. So we, could have gotten married. We did get married, but because of it, the condition to get married was that I was an Eagles fan. And I said, I'm okay with that because I was never Giants or Jets.
Okay.
We kind of were split in our family, my family. So now I was able to make my allegiance to South Jersey by being an Eagles
Well,
fan.
as you know, I too am a Yankees fan, so I'm perfectly
See,
fine.
we're in
But
good
I'm
company.
finding out
Yes,
things I wish I
yes.
didn't know. I don't like this already.
Okay.
Sorry, guys. But listen, the good thing about the baseball is that it's American and National League, and the Phillies are in the National League. The Yankees are in the American League. So we're like
And you do
one
have
happy.
Phillies gear, right? Like,
I
I've
do,
seen-
and I
yeah.
go to games. Actually, I've been to more Phillies games than I have Yankees,
Yeah,
so
so-
we're all good. So yes, a girl from North Jersey, down here. I say I'm a transplant. I just came from North Jersey and boop plopped into South Jersey, and that happened back in 2000. So I graduated high school and I applied to colleges, and I applied to Rowan first, Rowan University, which is out of Glassboro, and
That's where I went.
me too. I'm a graduate
And
of
so
it.
did Mike.
Okay. Sorry, Mary.
Mike and I went to St. Joe's.
So I got
Okay.
my undergrad at St. Joe's, and I
That's
got
right.
my
Okay.
grad degree.
So
all
we're all
connected
connected here.
somehow.
Yeah. And I always think of it was really God's providence in going to Rowan because I had all these big plans to apply to a lot of art schools, actually up in New York, being up from North Jersey. And in the end, I got in early at Rowan. I went on a portfolio interview with my art. I was an art major. That was my intention in college, was to be a big graphic designer one day. And of course, God has other plans. But yeah, basically, I got in early there, and I was like, you know what? I like it. It's good. I know I have a college to go to. It's far away from home that I can live away. It's close enough that I can come home on the weekends. And so that's where I was. And it was really neat to kind of look back now years later and see how God's hand was woven in all of that. And I always think about this. I would have never met Father Maz, who's a real dear friend of mine who I work for, if I never went to Rowan. I would never be working in the field of youth ministry if I didn't go to Rowan. I would never met my husband if I didn't go to Rowan. I would never be living in South Jersey. So basically, everything in my life wouldn't have happened the way it was supposed to happen. And, I feel God's providence was in that. So meeting my husband there. We were only dating at the time. And I actually went back to North Jersey and worked in New York in the field of graphic design. So I did fulfill my dreams, could kind of check it off as a graphic designer in New York.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it was great. And I got to do really great work up there. And it was a really important time in my life to kind of decide, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. And I don't know what's next, but something else is in the cards for me. So after I got married in 2007, I moved back to South Jersey and made that my home. So
The better Jersey.
I won't say that on record.
Are you the Jersey girl?
I always think about when it's gonna, when I think it's like around when I'm 50 years old, I'll be longer in South Jersey than I was in North. So
Wow.
We'll have a party.
then I'll change maybe allegiance, but I still have my North Jersey roots. They will never leave me. And if you hear a slight accent, that's why, because I'm from North Jersey. I'm a North Jersey girl. But
North Jersey.
So what about your spirituality becoming your vocation?
yeah, so I really look at what I do every day as my vocation in life. I really truly do. And especially in the field of youth ministry, but just in all avenues, even just accepting being able to be a podcast host is like, well, this is where God's calling me to now. And a lot of that was really formed, first with my parents. I really can't deny that. They really gave me a really in-depth roots in the Catholic faith and just really planted that seed deep that it stayed with me through high school and then in college. I was very involved in the Newman Center at Rowan, and that's where I met Father Maz and got very involved. I ended up being the president my senior year, and those roots just continued to just grow deeper. So then after college, it was just something that was with me. I was, again, working in New York, and I would go to 8 a.m. Mass in my hometown where I lived and then take the bus into the city. And I had my older lady friends from 8 a.m. Mass, and I was like the youngest person there, and they would always be like, oh, this is so nice, seeing a young person here in Mass. And that actually it was really a special time in my life to kind of feel like, okay, we need more of this. We need more young people in Mass. And it kind of opened my eyes. And I think that started to pave the way in a lot of other instances in my life to say, where does God need you in his vineyard? And for me, it ended up being in youth ministry. It took losing a job to kind of bring me into that field. So I lost a job suddenly. I was doing graphic design as a freelancer after I was married down in South Jersey out of a company in Marlton. And I suddenly lost my job, and it was like, I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do. Newly married, have a mortgage, have bills to pay. How am I going to make this work? And that's kind of what led me to youth ministry. And that door opened, and it's been 11 years now as a full-time youth minister within the diocese. I was first at St. Bridget's, your home parish,
my home
Mike,
parish,
right?
That's right. Yeah.
And that was in Glassboro. And then now I'm working into my 11th year now at Our Lady of Peace. I was only a short time at St.
I didn't
Bridget's.
realize you'd been there that long. 11 years. Wow.
2009 I was hired. So just starting my 11th year. It was it July 1st is the fiscal year. So that completed 10 years, which is really neat to see. So so here I am. And
you've done so much with the youth groups there are pretty intense. Can you tell us a little bit about
intense? That's a good word.
Well, I mean, you do so much.
Yeah. Well, you know what? There's so much to be done, and I wish that we could have this everywhere. But unfortunately, it's interesting. Youth ministry has a high turnover rate and there's a high burnout rate because it does get very intense. And in today's world, I said, I just need one person just to do my social media post alone. Like that alone to keep up with the youth and keep up what they're into and keep them reminded, not just the social media, but we use a really great app called Remind that texts out everybody, and just even scheduling all the texts for the week. That alone takes so much time, but that's what we need. That's what we need to do to keep them connected. So our ministries start in 3rd grade. They go up to 28 years old. So we start young and we go strong right through the young adult years, and we have active youth ministries in all those groups, 3rd through 5th grade, middle school, high school, and young adult. And we keep them active, keep them vibrant. We go on retreats. We do a lot of service. That's a really big component. I feel if a really big line that I like to say is, if you touch their hearts, you touch their souls, and service is a big way to do that, touching their hearts. So it really does open us up to be able open the youth up to be able to do God's work and to be able to see, like, faith is important to me. This is something I need. So service is a big component. But really, ministry, when we hear that word ministry, a lot of times people say, well, what do you do? And I always have to think, what do I do? I run programs for youth. Okay, but there's more to it. And honestly, the ministry aspect of it is that if you listen to the podcast, 2 podcasts ago with Marianela was on, we talked about NCYC, and she said, you're like a spiritual mother to me. And it was really warmed my heart to hear that sitting across the table from her. But more so, I was like, that's it, being spiritual mothers to these kids. And they all have parents, they all have godparents that are playing those roles, but it's in a different way because you're somebody that cares about them as a person. Hey, how was your game last night? Did you guys win? But then you're also somebody that cares about them. How is your faith going? And keeping them in check with that, being accountability for them. So that's a lot of what I do. It's not like, okay, yeah, we're gonna have a pizza party tonight. It's not really that. It's more about the ministry of it all. So that in a nutshell is kind of what I do. But there's so much more to it. We're gonna have some podcasts coming up about it. So
I'm really excited. We have that. Well, those will come up when they come up.
They'll come up.
Spoilers. So we don't want to ruin it.
Yeah, but it's been neat. I'm so blessed to be working amongst all great people in the Camden Diocese. Continually, again, been here 11 years, but keep meeting more and more along the way. That has been a great joy. Meeting, of course, when Bishop Sullivan came. Just the vibrancy of our diocese right now. It really excites me. I'm excited to be starting a new YouTube channel. So a lot of really great things have come from just accepting this job in youth ministry and so many things that you just don't expect, like so many moments.
These are the blessings.
Yeah.
But I'm so glad you keep saying yes to them because sometimes she
Be
has...
careful, take advantage of that. She'll get roped into everything.
That's kind of
now
what happened.
Now she's going to be the graphic designer and I'm going to get fired.
Well, actually, I did just ask her to do something, as a matter of fact, that we haven't talked about. But
the more you say you do, you're like, no, why did I say that?
We discover that talent. No.
That's what it is. That's the problem. And that's something Father Maz, we talked about on his podcast as well, was he's particularly good at is you try to find where good talent is. That's a good boss. The good boss isn't the boss who knows how to do everything. The good boss is the boss who knows how to find people who can do stuff.
That is true.
And you've got a good one over there. So Marianela, for your story, how does a little girl from the Dominican Republic end up in the Diocese of Camden?
Oof. I think we did a whole podcast on that question, so I'll try to summarize it. So I come from the Dominican Republic. I've been here now for 12 years. And so I was Catholic all my life. I grew up Catholic. I had a very big influence growing up. My grandmother raised me, so she was the one sort of like instilling that faith in me. We would pray the rosary every night together, when it was time for lunch. El Ave Maria, which I don't know how to translate. Like what we pray in the middle of the day. The Angelus?
Oh, the Angelus. Yes.
El Ave Maria. Yeah, so we would do that. And she had many grandkids. And I remember us coming and kneeling in front of Our Lady in the living room. And we would come running from everywhere. Like, we lived in the countryside. And everybody would be sliding, to be on their knees. It was like it was beautiful.
What a beautiful midday prayer.
So her faith was so palpable that I just felt like every time I was around her, like I could feel Jesus and I could feel how strong that was. And it was from her that I sort of like became not only Catholic but a very active Catholic. And I grew up being an altar server. Then I went to Catholic school starting on 6th grade, and that's where I started to discover sort of like the talents God had given me. I started singing in the choir. I started reading. I guess communication was on my blood since I was little. And I really enjoyed, doing it for the Lord. And I was a catechist at one point in the Dominican Republic. I was a basic English teacher when I graduated from high school, and I sort of like stayed at the school I was at. It was a Catholic school, and they hired me for teaching English when I left because I had just finished my basic English course, and it's different in the Dominican Republic. I didn't need to be certified. I just needed sort of like a pedagogy course, and I did that before I was teaching. And I was always the girl in the church. I had many priests that were friends and that were sort of like mentoring me during my childhood, and they were great, big influence in my life. Also, the Nuns of Mercy were incredible with me. At one point, I thought I was going to be a nun, but
Oh, I didn't know that.
Didn't take, huh?
that didn't happen. I fell in love, and I'm married with that guy and my husband Joel, and we have 2 kids now. I came 12 years ago. I went to Rowan and did communications there, and then I went to Villanova for my master's degree, also in communication and advertising. So,
And even though she went to Villanova as a St. Joe's grad,
Us Hawks are not
I still
too
allowed her
happy
on the
with
show.
that.
No,
yes. That's incredible, Mike. I can't believe it. So it was. I always sort of like wanted to be involved in the church, so volunteering was a thing that I did all the time in the Dominican Republic. When I moved to the United States, I was like a little bit shy, like coming to the church and sort of like getting to know people around and finding my way into the church in the U.S. It was a little bit different. Like, I remember when I wanted to be a lecturer, and I was told I needed to do this course and it had to wait, and I was sort of like, I was like, what is this about? This is church, but I understand it now. And I started serving at St. Joe's and then volunteering for an ESL program helping the immigrant community. As I was finishing my degree at Villanova, I started to do that, and it was a fantastic experience with Sister Veronica Roche, who gave me the opportunity to volunteer, first of all, as a teacher, and then I became the director of the program. And I got pregnant at one point, and I was like looking for a job, finishing my master's degree, and I was 7 months pregnant, and I was like, at this point, I don't think nobody's going to hire me. Sister Veronica kept insisting. She was like, look, there's a job at the diocese, and I think it fits perfectly with you. And I was like, oh, let me look at it. And I started looking at the requirements, and I'm like, check, I have that. Okay, I have that. And I'm like, well, it looks like I have what they're looking for. Let me interview. And I came, and it's been now 5 years and a few months that I've been in the diocese doing the Latino Enrollment Initiative, which I think really God, was in all of this, because my thesis was about Latino parents and their communications with their children and all the cultural aspects of it, and how and I ended up interviewing 5 families, and these 5 families were from St. Joe's Pro Cathedral. And it was a wonderful experience to then come to a job where I sort of like got to see
you were familiar with that.
I was very familiar with the topic, and I was very familiar with what happens once sort of like you immigrate to a country like the United States and you try to raise a family. And so I was sort of like blown away by the opportunity, and I'm like, even that the job existed, and I'm like, this is perfect. I would love to do something like this. And so I've been here in the diocese promoting Latino enrollment since I came, and serving in any way and anywhere God calls me to. Like, I am one of those that says, okay, yes, okay, Mike.
She does, and she's always pushing us. Like when you work in the diocese, like any large organization, it doesn't move quickly. It doesn't change its the way it's been doing things for a long time. When I was brought here, that was one of the things I was tasked with doing, was continuing to move us forward, moving us in new directions. And I think I've been able to help in some ways.
You've done a
with
great
that.
job with that.
That's very kind of you to say. Thank you. But Marianela kind of has that same thing. Like, she will come to me and be, and actually, Kari, I find this in you as well. And come to think of it, Mary does it too. Be like, hey, Mike, can we do this? Can we do this? And I'm like, boy, that's going to be hard to do. And Marianela is the one that she doesn't let it go. She's like, I think we could do it like this. Let's do it like this. And you'll tell her, no, we can't do it like this. It's like, I think we'll do it like this.
I think
And you
that's
can't
just
say no to her.
No, you
either
can't.
of you.
She's delightful.
But I think, Mike, that's just working with women. Maybe
Well,
you're just
there's-
realizing that.
Yeah, we know what we're doing, okay?
we're
Just
just-
listen to us.
I have been blessed. I was actually just having a conversation on Facebook Messenger with a former coworker about this last night. I have been blessed with working with great women every place I've ever worked, and I've learned so much, and I've learned a lot about how to work with women, but I've also, as a guy, very much learned the value in listening to women. And it took me, I can't say it took me a long time. I've always had good women in my life. But I'm glad that I've always remained open to it because, you guys have really good ideas. And as a dude, sometimes I just want to not do stuff. And that's a problem. Because if we want to engage and we want to move forward, then we got to do new things. So I thank you very much for doing that. And Marianela, continue to be a pain in my derriere when it comes to that
I
stuff.
knew he was going to close
After the
You're the
diamond
diamond.
thing.
You're
Yeah.
the diamond.
And they come in pairs.
The
They only
compliment sandwich.
compliments. That's exactly right.
That's his way of loving. Excuse him.
That's it. I only know I show love through sarcasm. So Mary, perhaps my most regular target of my sarcasm. I'm going to give you the opportunity to tell your side of what's brought you here. Just remember, I have an entire podcast. It's just about your life. So if you don't give me enough, I'm just going to put that in there.
Well, now that was thrown in my face.
No, so kind of talk about your background a little bit. You have some unique stuff. I want to hear about your time in Korea and your time in particularly your visit to Mother Teresa's.
That's when I started crying on the first podcast.
Yes, it is.
I'll have to.
But let's talk about your life starting here. You're unlike the previous two. You actually are a South Jersey girl.
I am. I was born and raised in Voorhees, and let's see, I'll give my elevator pitch of how I ended up here, but it's funny because I know you guys both said that things kind of just fell into place. And that's kind of the same situation with me. I was a drifter of sorts. During college, I could not pick a major. I had no idea what I was doing. And I don't think it was until my advisor said, you need to pick a major. Your undeclared time is up. What do you want to do? I said, I don't know. I picked marketing. I liked it, but it wasn't really what I loved, and I ended up switching to journalism. And I was a fifth semester senior, whatever that phrase is.
Super senior.
Yes, I like that better.
Super senior.
And I just fell in love with journalism. I was very, very shy, very reserved, but I had professors who really pushed me out of my comfort zone in terms of interviewing people, getting to know people. And I just fell in love with it. And it just so happened that year I was accepted into a global journalism program, and I went to Singapore for it. And I fell in love with that country. And I've always loved travel, like more than anything. I was really lucky growing up. My parents were avid travelers. They still are. And they always encouraged me, get out, spend some time away. And that's exactly what I did after college. I said, I don't really have roots here yet. I'm still not really sure what I want to do. And I ended up moving to South Korea for 1 year and teaching ESL there, teaching English to middle school students. And that was just, I think about that whole year every single day. It was just life-altering in every way. The hospitality of the Korean people, the challenges. The first day I got to the airport, I fell and broke my ankle.
Oh, wow.
The week after that, I got the flu, and I didn't even have my immigration card at that point. So, people were stepping in left and right to take care of me, and I've just never witnessed that kind of that communal, hospitable. I think some of it's lost on Americans, like not everyone, but it was just a wonderful experience. I almost renewed my contract, but I said, you know what? No, I want to use the money that I made and travel my way back home, and then I'll kind of find my roots somewhere. And that's exactly what I did with my older sister, Kelly, who's my best friend. So we...
Sweet.
Yeah. So
Does she appreciate it when you call her your older sister as opposed to just saying my sister?
She'd give you a run for your money with sarcasm because
I love
when
your sister.
people say who's older, it's who do you think is older? And she traps people, and she always says, if you were a politician, you would say we were twins. But she lies to people and says that she's the younger one, but I put up with it.
And that is why you say older.
3 years.
That's there you go.
But she is just a wonderful person and the best travel buddy I could have ever asked for, because we kind of just winged it. Like I said, I was a drifter. We went to, for 6 months, we traveled throughout Southeast Asia.
And that was when you left Korea?
That was
all that
right
same
after.
time period?
Yep. And it was easy because I was already in that hemisphere, so you can travel very cheaply, which we did, staying in hostels and meeting a ton of different people and seeing these beautiful places. And, of course, there were wonderful memories. There were really hard times, but it was just a great experience. And the last country we went to was India. And we went there because there's a picture at home of my parents with Mother Teresa. After they got married, I don't know what year. They've been married for like 45 years.
I'm not going to do the math.
Yeah, me neither.
I'm terrible at it.
But instead
We're
of
communicators.
Oh, wait a second.
no, we don't do math
45
around here.
years? I'm 47,
I
so that
think
was
that might be-
1975. 74.
Wow.
There
You
you go.
impressed
All right,
us.
I'm not
Thank
going to
you.
math check you on that one. I'll take your word for it. But my parents, instead of a honeymoon, they joined the Peace Corps for 4 years, and then they traveled as far and wide as they could, just like my sister and I. And they spent a significant amount of time in Calcutta, India, at Mother Teresa's home of the destitute dying, which I think is now called the Kalighat, or it has a few different names. And the stories that they have told, just growing up hearing what they did there. I mean, this place was run by Mother Teresa, and they kind of just showed up and stayed for a long time. And it's for lack of a better word, a hospice. The caste system is
Wow.
very real in India. So
That's pretty
people who
impressive.
were considered the quote untouchables of society, who didn't have family or were sick or otherwise unwanted or marginalized, were left to die on the streets, and it was them who carried these people into the home with Mother Teresa, and just basic needs, comfort, water, all of
So
that.
they were there with Mother Teresa.
Yes, there's
so
a
actually,
picture of them at home, and everyone's like, is that photoshopped? I'm like, oh, that's real.
So that means you are the daughter of two people who met this saint.
Yeah, they know her. What they tell stories about her. It's just unreal. And I said,
Wow.
Kelly, we have to. Well, I don't know whose idea it was. Both of us said we have to go there. And
Your parents' heart must have been so filled when they heard this.
She was
Yeah.
canonized. Oh my
because
goodness.
my mom's
that's
a
pretty
worrier.
impressive.
Yes.
She's a worrier, and everything she gets anxious about when I do. But she was very encouraging. She said, "No, you travel." She still checked in on me all the time, but she said, "By all means, go. You guys should go."
awesome.
And I see why, because when we showed up, we didn't really know what we were getting into. We didn't know how long we would be there for, but this nun kind of just took us in, and I was kind of picturing like these sweet old little nuns, but she kind of just grabbed us and said, "Are you guys ready to work or no?" And I said, "Oh, sure." And so we were put to work, and the stories that my parents tell, I mean, it was the same exact type of work there. And it was during the hottest point in the summer, so they were in need of volunteers. So we kind of just fell into that role, and that was another, I keep using the word life-altering, but that's the best word I can come up with, just eye-opening experience to the levels of poverty. And I had actually planned to travel more after that, but that was it for me. That kind of just broke me in a way.
How long were you? How long did you serve there?
That was close to a month. And was still recovering from an injury in Nepal. If you ever go there and someone says this is a beginner's level hike, don't trust them by American standards. That's like climbing Mount Everest. So I was physically, emotionally, spiritually just very beat up. And I came home and I said, I'm going to sleep for a week and then I'll reconnect with people. I was living with my parents. I said, Dad, I will find a job. Don't worry. I'll get on that, but I need to decompress. And after that week passed, I was just scrolling through emails. I was subscribed to this job alert thing. And I was just like, none of this sounds appealing to me. Like, what did I do? Why did I do journalism? There's no jobs here. There's nothing mission oriented. I was discouraged, and then one day I woke up and it said Catholic Charities, Diocese of Camden. I said, and I clicked on it, and I read the description, and I looked at the technical requirements. I said, well, yeah. I visited the website, and the first thing I saw, as I said, I need to, after all of that and just life in general, I can't do something that I can't really put my heart into. And when I went to the website, I read Matthew 25:36, and reading that, I said, this is it. Like, this is what I experienced when I was struggling in Korea and many other countries. I mean, basic human needs, that I was lucky enough to have. And I thought about Mother Teresa's home for the destitute and dying, and it all just seemed to resonate. I said, this is what we should be doing. If I can be a part of that, given my talents, then great.
Wow.
And I had an interview with Mike Walsh here, and Mr. Kevin Hickey, who's the executive director of Catholic Charities. That was the most terrifying hour and some of my entire life, because Mike
Kevin Hickey should listen to this.
We've talked about it.
Mike and Kevin were arguing with each other for half the time, and I was just kind of shaking in a corner like, oh my gosh, do I want to work for these crazy people? But Mike was grilling me about technical stuff. Kevin seemed very uninterested until I said, I gotta get his attention, and we had a great conversation. I said, I still don't think I'm going to get this job. I had a couple more interviews, and I did. And I was so happy and terrified. But in the past 3 years now that I've been here, I just, I talked about traveling and stuff, but right here in South Jersey, the poverty, the need for social services, the need for so many things, is very, very real. You don't need to go to India to see just how desperate people are. It's all in every county in South Jersey, and my eyes have been open to that through telling the stories of clients who have come to us in need, whether they are in need of mental health services, housing, migrants and refugees, especially with the 2-year Share the Journey campaign, which I was very involved in. The need is there, and having that chance to, tell these stories and at the same time just learn so much, especially from you, Mike. I don't like complimenting him. It feels weird, but I've grown so much. Don't
let it be a habit.
In every way of the word, and Kevin too, and.
Yeah, I think Kevin, you probably learned a lot more from him, because he's been on the show before. He's one of our frequent guests, and I'm a firm believer that your coworkers are your coworkers and your friends are your friends, and they're not necessarily the same thing. If any of you get hit by a bus, I'll be fine tomorrow morning.
Thanks.
But no problem.
All right,
but
ladies, let's get out of here.
But the truth of the matter is,
okay.
I will admit that I do have a fondness for Kevin, because there is something about him and his dedication to the people, and his dedication to the people in need, and his ability with staff. I mean, he just the people that work at Catholic Charities are some of the kindest, nicest, sweetest human beings that I've ever met in my entire life. And they're not all Catholic. Actually, quite a few of them are not Catholic. They just are people who are dedicated to
Catholic social teaching. Like, they embrace it wholeheartedly.
Yeah, and the spirituality of Catholic charities. And so here are these, there are Muslims and Jews and all, but they're just dedicated to the people that Catholic Charities services. And it's beautiful. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
I tell people when I have tough days, because shockingly, when you work in the diocese, there are some tough days.
Really?
I know.
No idea. Oh, I'm sorry.
But I'll go over to Catholic Charities just to feel better about just seeing all the great work that's being done there, and the clients who are just so happy with the services they've received, and Kevin does a great job, and you've been doing a great job showcasing it. So
I always tell people my coworkers do all the hard work, and I just get to tell the stories. And you're right about Kevin. I mean, talk about somebody who has devoted literally their whole life to serving others in capacities. That's what he does, and at the same time just serves as a mentor for so many people spiritually. I mean, I'll come to my desk and there'll just be a book there with a note that says read it, and every single time it is just something that blows my mind or challenges me or makes me think really, really hard. And he truly does care about his staff, about the clients. And I said, one day I really hope I can be like half the person he is to anybody I end up supervising. That sounds really cliche, but it's true.
So my question is, did that 54 minutes seem like it went by
I'm
really
sorry,
fast?
I talked the longest by
No,
far.
no.
I drank
It
too
was
much
just-
coffee. I'm sorry.
It was incredible. We're here like with our mouth open, like, oh my goodness.
He's never going to invite the three of us back on
I
again.
will always invite the
Good.
three of you
I
back.
wish we could go another 55. I want to hear more. And this is just like the tip of the iceberg for us.
It really is, and that's
But will
the beauty of the
anyone
podcast.
listen to it? I hope so.
I can never predict. That's the one thing I can never predict, but I'm always hopeful that they will. And I want to thank you three for coming in on to record this podcast. And it's not easy to get all of the four of us together at one time, so thank you very much for making the effort, particularly you, Kari, who doesn't work in the diocese, to come on in.
Good to be here. I like being here.
I'm glad to hear that.
Thank you.
And then to our listeners, thank you for always checking in with us. And we're recording this at the end of the year, so I hope everybody has a happy new year, and I hope you've had a good Christmas season so far. And we'll talk to you again next week. Bye.
God bless you.
Goodbye. Merry Christmas.
Happy New Year.